Hey, do you run an agency and are looking to sell to enterprise clients? Then there's a couple of pitfalls you want to avoid. My name is Benjamin. I'm a Fractional COO and a 3 times bootstrap founder. I've sold to enterprise clients before. I've worked with many agencies that have done that. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through 7 things you want to watch out for when starting to sell to enterprise clients. And wait until the end because this is typically the one that breaks agencies to the neck. So number one, your productized offer will likely not work. Enterprise clients, they demand what you do being customized to them to fit their needs, to fit their specific workflows and processes. So going in with a highly productized offer is likely not going to cut it. If you want to go for enterprise clients, you will have to accept the fact that you'll have to be a bit more fluid in the way you deliver, in the way you engage, in the way you onboard, in the way you manage accounts. So forget the idea that your productized offer will carry you through for enterprise clients. In most cases, it won't. You will have to make some adjustments to it as you go. The second one is something that typically surprises first-time enterprise sellers: high effort pitches. So enterprise clients will often demand that you go into an RFP process, request for proposal, where there's a pretty detailed document that outlines what they want to see in a pitch from you. So they typically want you to develop a full strategy, go in with how you would approach it, potentially with some examples of deliverables, etc., etc. So there's often high effort in the pitch. Now the question is this worth it? And obviously you won't win every pitch, so the answer might be no in some cases. But if you get a client that pays well, an enterprise client over time, it might as well be worth it. So just prepare for high effort pitches that you might need to deliver. The third point is, and this is something that is very surprising to many agencies moving into enterprise client base, long sales cycles. And when I mean long, I'm talking a year, sometimes more, from the first signal somebody is willing to buy to the point where you actually start working. Because if you think about it, enterprise clients often work with contracts that are being awarded for 3 years, sometimes 5 years or longer. So they'll start preparing for a new request for proposal to potentially replace the current vendor that they're using. And this happens very early, right? So assume the contract expires end of year. So they'll start working on building their vendor list for this RFP process in the beginning of that year. And then you'll be notified or invited to that pitch. And yeah, months can pass until you're through that process. And if you deliver your pitch and then the department you're working with wants to work with you, then you have to go through a full vendor onboarding process. There's another department that's going to get involved. I'm going to talk about in a second. There's typically a legal review. There might be, depending on what service you provide, an IT department, due diligence and deep dive. So there's many things that happen, all leading to sales cycles being really long. So you want to have a lot of room financially to endure these sales cycles. Now, the department I was just referencing, purchasing departments, they will negotiate your proposed prices with you after the department you'll be actually working with said, yes, we want to work with that company. Or even in the phase where there's 2 or 3 competitors of you and you still in the race, they'll start negotiating prices. It's very important that you're aware of this stage happening, because you have to protect your margins throughout the process. And that typically means that you might want to start with some breathing room in your pricing. If you go in with your last and ultimate price for the initial pitch, you're going to lose a lot of money during the negotiation process and then end up with margins that don't carry your business. So it's important to understand that there will negotiations be happening. And it's also important to get an understanding of who you're dealing with on the purchasing department. There's many different companies out there that have different styles of negotiating, and some of them are very straightforward and they will give you a clear roadmap of how negotiations go in terms of first round, second round, third round, or whatever it might be. Others might throw a curveball at the very end of the negotiation, asking for a last and final offer upon a agreed upon price. So just be aware this is coming and prepare your pricing to protect your margins throughout the process. 5 is terms and conditions. So enterprise clients will typically have, fully spelled out legal teams that will bombard you with pretty expansive sets of terms and conditions. My personal recommendation is just go through it and see if there are any red flags, any things you can't say yes to in there. And these are the ones that you have to renegotiate. Oftentimes there is wiggle room in those. See them as a starting point. But then also you always have to decide, is whatever term there is in the terms and conditions that the enterprise client wants for the contract, is that such a red flag for me that I'm not willing to accept the contract with that in it. If yes, then you have to walk away, right? So you got to be very clear on where's your red line and which things you can't accept. Examples include you can't advertise with you working for the client, so there's NDA agreements in there, which might prevent you from getting other enterprise clients because you can't mention the name, liability, indemnification, these types of issues, audits, financial audits, etc. So you got to be careful and actually read that stuff and make sure there's nothing in there that's a red flag for you. Other than that, also I would suggest accept that there's risk in working with enterprise clients. That's also why they pay well, right? So you will never get to a point where you are fully in control of the engagement. There's always a power imbalance between you as a vendor and the enterprise client, who's typically 100, 1,000x your size. Now, from a operating perspective, and this is what I deal most with as a fractional CEO, the one thing that is very, very important for you at the outset, and then also while delivering on the agency account, is you got to have enough financial slack in the system to service these accounts. Because enterprise clients will usually, if not always, have the complexity they are dealing with in the operations trickle down to you. And this ties into my first point about the productized offers. You have to accept that there's a certain complexity when it comes to account management. How many meetings do we run? I need an extra report. I need this campaign, but I need you to basically align with 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 different stakeholders on it, etc. Right? So there's many, many different things that happen in enterprise relationships that just increase your delivery complexity. If you're thin on margins, you can't accommodate that complexity well. So it's really important that you account for the fact that there will be complexity in the offer. And that's why you need to calculate your pricing and your offer structure in a way that allows you to absorb that complexity in delivery. That becomes easier over time because you know what you're dealing with. But as you move from smaller clients to enterprise clients, this can often be surprising. So it's important to just build in financial slack, and you can typically do this with having a project management fee in your proposals or other line items that help you just build in some wiggle room for the inevitable complexity that you will see when you deal with that client. Now to the last point that in my experience kills sometimes even established businesses if they're not prepared for it, and that is working capital. Enterprise clients have other payment terms than your average next door client. Right? They typically have longer payment terms, 30, 60, sometimes 90 days net. And on top of that, you will face even further delays through the department you're working with, not approving the work, or an invoice being lost in their system, or a request to change the invoice that takes them 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, 7 weeks to hand to you. So then you have to go through the cycle again. So sometimes you can see delays from contract invoice to invoice paid to like 120 days, 150 days. And that is after you've probably delivered for 2, 3, or 4 months. So you can sometimes be in a situation where you have to have 4, maybe 5 months of working capital available to fund your operations before you see money coming in from enterprise clients. So if you start dealing with enterprise clients, either you have built up quite a cash buffer, or you work with your bank or owners on a line of credit, right? Somebody that can give you some maybe investment to give you more working capital. But prepare for that, because if you're running out of air before the enterprise client pays you, you can be as good as you won't survive, right? So you have to prepare for the working capital needs due to just longer payment periods. If you want to work with enterprise clients, I want you to take away 2 things. 1, prepare for complexity and protect your margins. 2, timing and cash flow. Prepare for long periods of unpaid work until you finally get the money. You need to survive them in order to reap the benefits of working with enterprise clients. So complexity and protect your margins, and 2, prepare for long timelines, prepare for cash flow implications. If you can do that, enterprise clients are very worthwhile working with, great fun, great projects, and good money to be earned, but be aware of these pitfalls. If you like this video and looking for more operations tips for agencies and service businesses, please like and subscribe. It would mean the world to me. Thanks. Bye.